We recently assisted a landowner in central Missouri with his habitat improvement and hunting plan. Andy, the property owner, owns 20 acres where he and his son hunt.
Andy, Grant Woods calling.
Hey, Grant, how you doing?
I'm well. How are you today, sir?
Very good.
Andy's property is on the north portion of a large block of timber, and to the north, east, and west, there's production cropland. Looking at the onX map, it was easy to tell Andy's property was well positioned. He was smack dab in the middle of the travel corridor that deer would be using as they traveled between food and cover.
It's a little bit over 700 yards from your northern boundary up those ag fields. So that's not far. It's less than a half a mile up there. So to deer, it's not too far. But your property is situated in the middle of a bunch of timber and cattle pastures. So if we can develop some good food plots on your property, I think we can shortstop deer from going up to the ag fields, at least during daylight hours.
Because Andy's property is in crop country, quality food and cover is often a limited resource after the harvest. Grant recommended that Andy focus on providing cool season forage and cover on his property.
So one of the first things I would do is the small power line easement that's on the east side of your property.
Yes.
There's not a lot of elevation change there at all, like 20 feet from one end to the other.
Yeah, it just kind of goes up and down. Up and down about 4 times.
Right. All those low spots, or even in 50 yards, which is a fair amount from either end of your property, I would plant the rest of that thing in a food plot. Well, another plan I have is I notice there's a line of trees that goes across the top of your property, just 50 or 60 yards down from your border.
Yeah, and that's a creek right there. So you have trees on either side of that.
Yeah, so I've drawn out a food plot there. We'll send you a map of this food plot, and it hugs the line of your timber, those cedar trees. That pasture to cedars, I'm sure you see deer out there, but they're just passing through. It's not really providing much benefit. So what I want to do is stay away from the road over there, even though it gates at your property. You just don't want your neighbors seeing deer out in your place all the time. It's just a big temptation. So I've mapped out about a 2.8 acre food plot in the center there, and that way it's going to attract a lot of deer across your utility right of way.
Yeah.
And I would suggest hunting along that utility right of way or in between there and the big food plot, and not necessarily right on the food plot, because if you get busted or you alert deer while hunting the food plot, they're going to associate that area with danger. And then on the top up here in that field just like, because there's another little creek or a little stream of woods but kind of between you and your neighbor to the north there. So I've drawn out a 3/4 of an acre plot there. And it hugs your timber line, so you got places for stands and blinds. And this will give you more of a feeding size type food plot. These are destination plots. What I want to talk about is ways to hunt or position stands and blinds of deer going to those plots, and not necessarily focused on hunting those plots.
Growing Deer is brought to you by Bass Pro Shops and Cabela's. Also by Reconics, Eagle Seed, Nikon, Winchester, Lacrosse Footwear, Morel Targets, Bog, Hooks Custom Calls, Montana Decoy, Summit Tree Stands, Drake Non-Typical Clothing, RTP Outdoors, Yamaha, Fourth Arrow, onX Hunt, Scent Crusher, Scorpion Venom Archery, Bloodsport Arrows, Code Blue, Decode, G5 Broadheads, Prime Bows, and Redneck Hunting Blinds.
But in between a big old block for your property of timber in there, and I noticed there's a little opening in a large flat area, and I'll draw this or shoot it to you, but we can make another little hunting or hidey-ho plot that's just guys, a half acre or less, right in the middle of all those trees. Now, what that does is a couple things. It's not only more food, but when I do that, now I've created several bottlenecks, several areas in the timber that deer are gonna scoot through because they don't want to be out in the open. And this just makes your property much, much more huntable. There's cover everywhere, there's water everywhere. What you can provide that your neighbors are not likely to provide is food. And deer are going to food every day. So, boy, if you get these plots established, I promise you, you're gonna see a lot of deer.
Right, and so do you think I should put beans in those plots?
Next summer, I would try beans in the larger 2 plots. You may want to use one of the fences like I used a hot zone fence to protect the one to the north, because I'm afraid there's so many deer in your area and you've got the only food right there that they may damage it pretty quickly due to browse pressure. I would encourage you to allow the south half of your property below that food plot. I would never mow that or try to keep it looking like a golf course or anything. I want those grasses to grow up to be bedding cover.
Okay.
So
I could do that.
from the big,
a long time to mow that, so
stop mowing that. You may mow it once a year, once every 2 years, simply so saplings don't take over. Or if you start getting some hardwood saplings in there, you can walk around with a backpack sprayer and just terminate those saplings and leave your cover out there. Now, this is a little bit more advanced, but if you can work it out, if you can do this, this would be awesome. You have a road on the west side of your property and a neighbor's driveway on the south, or maybe just slightly off your property on the south. And if you go over to the timber line and then go back up that food plot, the food plot's a fire break, the roads are fire breaks, and if you just disc in between or mow real short to the ground, close to the ground, from the food plot back west to the road, and from the southeast corner of the food plot down to the road, the neighbor's driveway, if the neighbor allows you to do this, if you would burn that area, about once every 3 years, it would be even better habitat, and that would take care of your cedars and your hardwood saplings encroaching on that area.
Eastern red cedar offers little benefit for wildlife. Grant recommended that Andy target those cedars, get them on the ground, open up the canopy, allow sunlight to hit the ground, and encourage native grasses and forbs to grow.
So you had a list of questions here, and I'm going to go back to it. And one of them was, talked about cutting all the cedars. My first priority is cutting.
There's a lot of them.
Yeah, my first priority, or maybe year 1, if you will, is cut the cedars in where the food plots are going. Year 2 or 3, I would start just going in there and felling those cedars. You're just going to fell them. As long as you cut a cedar below the bottom limb, it will not regenerate. It won't send up saplings like a hardwood sprout will.
Okay.
So you just got, you got a safety helmet on and chaps on and hearing protection. You don't have to have a large chainsaw to cut cedar. So we use a pretty small model because you're carrying it all day and it's very efficient. Cedars are relatively soft wood. And we just fell them and let them lay for at least 2 years. Boy, there'll be all kind of deer cover. But as those needles fall off the cedars, vegetation will start growing up in them. Fell those cedars and let them dry for at least 2 years. And then run a light, just when I say light, backing fire. So let's say the wind's out of the west, you start the fire on the east and let it creep in there. And that will consume a lot of those cedars and skeletons and open up that area where you can see deer further, and even more importantly, allow sunshine to reach the soil and stimulate really great native grasses and forbs to grow in your woods and create more of a savanna habitat.
As with any property, a key part to Andy's success will be his hunting strategy.
So let's talk about hunting strategies. So you're going to approach down the road there, and I really, really, really want you to develop a path all the way along your southern border and your northern border. So if we have a west wind, let's just say we have a west wind. and you park there at your place and you start walking these food plots, well, the wind is pushing your scent right to the plot before you ever get there. So usually it's rarely a direct west wind. There's a little south to it or a little north to it. So I need you to be able to go from the gravel road there all the way to the eastern end of your property, and then walk up or down the eastern end of your property until you get about parallel with where you want to hunt, and then cut in.
Okay.
Because those west winds, you need to be able to come in from the east.
Okay.
And not through the middle of your properties. If it's the northwest wind, you need to go all the way to the south. If it's the southwest wind, you want to come into the north, get all the way to the eastern side of your property, or at least as far east as where you're hunting, and then cut down to where your stand or blind is.
Grant designed a hunting plan that gave Andy access around the border of his property and had many stand and blind locations. This gave Andy many options to be able to hunt during different winds.
These walking paths where you can get in silently are as important as any habitat feature we have on this property. Because you have to be able to approach your hunting area without alerting deer.
Agreed.
And if you just come through the middle, maybe you come, 50 yards, 100 yards south of the creek that runs through your property, that drainage, and cut through that food plot and get all the way back to the little food plot we designed in the timber, well, goodness, you spooked a lot of deer before you ever started your hunt.
Yep.
So I think that's really, really important.
We believe that if Andy and his son apply the hunting strategies and the habitat improvement plans to this 20 acres, they're going to have many great hunts. The entire Growing Deer team enjoys working with landowners and hunters to create better habitat. But we're not the only ones. There are many great biologists out there that enjoy working with landowners to improve their properties. Recently, over 100 private land biologists that work with the Missouri Department of Conservation and other organizations came and toured the proving grounds. We had a great time discussing the buffalo system, soil health, and habitat improvement. By working together, we can all make wise decisions on conserving and improving our natural resources. Grant recently traveled to Syracuse, New York to share these topics and hunting strategies with hunters and landowners there. Grant had a great time swapping hunting stories and sharing about creation. We share the details of these events on our social media pages, so if you'd like more information, check them out. If you enjoy the hunting tips and strategies we share on Growing Deer, I encourage you to check out our deer hunting playlist, subscribe to our channel, and give us a thumbs up. Putting together an effective hunting plan, well, it takes time and some strategy. The same is true for our lives. I hope you slow down this week and enjoy creation. But more importantly, I hope you slow down, listen to what the Creator is saying to you and the plan He has for your life. Thanks for watching Growing Deer.